What's up everyone, my name is Daniel, and here are your Week 9 waiver wire pickups. There will be a full list of all of the players being discussed today at the end of the video. Let's start with the quarterbacks. First I want to talk about Phillip Rivers. This is the second game in a row where he's scored more than 20 fantasy points with 3 touchdowns in each outing. He started the season off really slow, but seemed to really pick up the momentum before their bye against the Bengals. He's got a tough matchup next week against Baltimore, but I really like his upside as a high-end QB2 for the rest of the season. Next up, let's talk about Derek Carr. He had a pretty poor outing this week in a weather-affecting game against the Browns. However, I still see him as someone with a solid floor moving forward, and he has some favorable matchups in the upcoming weeks. Next up is Nick Mullens. News came out today that Jimmy G is going to be out at least 6 weeks with an injury. Even though he doesn't have Kittle either, he seems like someone who's going to be throwing the ball a lot every game, but I really like what I've seen in the few games that he started this season. Lastly is Teddy Bridgewater. Another guy who's been on my list for a few weeks. He had a surprisingly bad game against the Falcons this week. I chalk it up to being a divisional game, and I feel like anything goes in those types of matchups. He should get a little bit of a boost with CMC coming back soon, so I expect him to be able to put up some okay numbers for the rest of the season. For deep stashes, I would look to Kirk Cousins, Tua Tagovailoa, and Drew Lock. Let's jump into our running backs list. I never thought I'd say this, but J.K. Dobbins is worth a pickup. With Mark Ingram not playing this past weekend, him and Gus Edwards split carries. Even though they both got an equal amount of shares, he passed my eye test, and I think he's the more talented back of the two. We don't quite know what's going to happen once Mark Ingram is back, but I like him as a stash to potentially take over that backfield. Next up is Nyheim Hines. He was featured in the passing game this week, and I much prefer him over Jordan Wilkins as a pickup. He has value as a pass-catching back even when Jonathan Taylor is playing, and I think he's a great handcuff to have in case JT goes down. Next is Deejay Dallas. All I can say about him is that he's used in both the running game and passing game, and he's going to be good until Carlos Hyde or Chris Carson comes back. I don't really imagine Travis Homer being a huge threat to him, so he'll be a solid flex play until we see the top 2 running backs return. Lastly, Zack Moss. Even though he split carries with Devin Singletary this week, he was a running back that was able to find the end zone twice. To me, he seems like a better player than Singletary, so I think he's worth a stash as a flex option moving forward. For some deeper stashes, look to Jeremy McNichols, Brian Hill, and Samaje Perine. Let's talk about wide receivers. Curtis Samuel is someone that I almost picked up in my flex before Thursday Night Football, and I regret I didn't. Even though we have Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore ahead of him, I really like his versatility as both a running back and a wide receiver. And additionally, he's been able to find the end zone 3 times in the last 2 games. I can see the Panthers getting creative with both him and Christian McCaffrey once he returns. Next up is Mike Williams. He's your definition of a boom or bust candidate, but due to the gunslinging nature of that offense, I lean boom more so than bust. He scored at least 20 fantasy points in the last 2 of 3 games, so I value him as a high ceiling flex play. Next up is Marvin Hall. He had 7 targets with 4 receptions for 113 yards this week against the Colts. I can see him being heavily involved in the offense as long as Kenny Golladay is out with his injury. Mecole Hardman, another boom or bust candidate. This week he had 9 targets, 7 receptions for 96 yards and a score. It's always good to have some sort of ownership in that Kansas City offense, and he can really benefit if the Chiefs continue to get ahead early against weaker opponents. Lastly, Kevin Bourne. He had 10 receptions this week and can play a significant role as long as Deebo Samuel is out. The 49ers have a short week as they play on Thursday night, so I can see him being a solid flex play this week. If Corey Davis or Brandon Aiyuk are on your free agent list, go get them right away. Some deeper stashes include Jaelen Reagor, Lazard, Braxton Berrios, Michael Pittman, Randall Cobb, and Jakobi Meyers. Let's jump to our tight ends next. I'm going to keep on talking about this guy until he goes up above 50% ownership. And you guessed it, that's Trey Burton. I don't even love him for his targets or yards that he gets, but I'm high on him because of how the Colts use him in the red zone. He's had 3 touchdowns in 2 games, and 2 of those are rushing touchdowns. People wonder who the running back is to own in Indianapolis, and here's your answer. It's Trey Burton. With the recent update that Kittle is going to be out for the next 8 weeks, Jordan Reed is a must pick up in all leagues. Reed is going to fill in that role very well, and it looks like Nick Mullens really likes to throw to him. He might only last you 2.5 games, but within those 2.5 games, he should be able to put up some good numbers. Next is Logan Thomas. He's had back-to-back 40-plus yards plus a TD games. I'm not too excited about his floor, but for the tight end, it's okay. I think he could be a good safety valve for Kyle Allen, so he might be worth a stash. Robert Tonyan of the Packers is next. He finally put up some value and had 7 targets this last week against the Vikings. Lazard coming back this week is definitely going to hurt his value, but like I've mentioned before, I do like to have some sort of ownership in that Packers offense. Lastly, Darren Fells. He put up a dud against Green Bay before their bye, but we just need to chalk that up to the defensive scheme of the Packers and continue to think of him as one of the primary red zone targets for Watson. For stashes, I'm looking at Jack Doyle, Dalton Schultz, and Gerald Everett. We've got 4 defenses to look at for this week. The first is the Washington football team. They're playing the New York Giants this week, who give up the 4th most fantasy points to defenses. During their last matchup, the Giants were only able to put up 240 total yards. Conversely, the New York Giants are also a good team to look at. The Giants had 2 interceptions the last time they played Washington, and one of them was a pick 6. Kyle Allen is turnover prone, and with a few sacks sprinkled in there, I can see the New York Giants putting up double-digit fantasy points again. The Texans have a pretty good matchup this week against the Jags since Minshew is out. Jacksonville will most likely be starting their 6th-round rookie, Jake Luton. No one really knows about him, but I don't expect him to have an immediate impact. So look for a lot of pressure, which means lots of sacks and interceptions. Lastly, as a surprise to many of you guys, the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins are currently the NFL's best scoring defense. Even though they're playing the Cardinals this week, Kyler Murray has a turnover in all but 1 game. So there's a good chance that the Dolphins can force him into some bad decisions. Here is the final list of every player that we talked about today. That's it for this week's waiver wire pickup video. Let me know your thoughts and whether or not my video from last week helped you win your matchup. I will be live streaming tonight to go over last minute waiver wire pickups, and the start time will be finalized and posted below in the comment section. Remember to give this video a thumbs up, put any questions that you have in the comments below, as well as subscribe to my channel for weekly uploads and stream notifications. Thanks all, and until next time.